Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Film Seizure. My name is Jeff Arbuckle. With me, as always, are my compatriots, my posse,
Your
my
posse.
my my I don't know, the guys that I ride with. Chuck
I feel
Moore.
like I'm the tired old sheriff who you had to drag into this episode.
Yes, and that's not Chuck Moore. Chuck Moore, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
I feel like
And
I'm the tired old co-host that Jason just didn't
stepped
care
all over.
about. Yeah.
No, you're going to die.
So yeah, and so with
Just
that,
make sure you remember me to everyone that listens from now on.
well, Chuck, you could be the Chill Wills character, just hanging out in that bar, waiting for people to come in with your massive stock of beans.
Beans.
That is a lot of beans.
There was a lot of beans.
Succotash.
Quality. Anyway, so yeah, Jason Oliver. Jason, how goes it?
Howdy, partner. I'm back
Oh,
again.
Yes, this is our penultimate episode of Western Month here at Film Seizure. And we've gotten into the point now where we're going to talk about real life outlaws. And we start with 73, right? 73's Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid from director.
It's history. We're going to talk about history.
Well, it's revisionist history.
Yeah, it is.
Jason cannot wait to talk. Chuck, go ahead and try to say something. Let's see what happens.
No.
Hey.
Yeah, so this is Sam Peckinpah. And this is a movie that's got a little bit of a troubled behind the scenes.
Yes.
But I think the result is pretty good. So, yes. So this is a movie I've seen before in the 90s at some point. Had either of you ever seen this movie before?
No, I've heard the soundtrack, but I've not seen the movie.
So let me ask you about that. Was Knock on Heaven's Door, was that written for this movie?
Yes.
Wow, that's gooder. That's a gooder. Yeah, I liked the soundtrack to this movie a whole lot.
Most of the soundtrack is just the instrumentals, and it's got the 3 lyrical songs on it. But one of which is one of which is like a super, super popular song from an album that got horrific reviews when it came out. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's not unlike some Bob Dylan albums. Did get,
but this is a real good era for Bob Dylan.
In the immortal words of Bad Santa, that can't all be fucking winners, kid.
I guess so. All right. So
but this one was a winner. I like it.
Yes, this is a winner. Now, Chuck, did you agree with the soundtrack?
Did I agree with the soundtrack?
With our take of the soundtrack?
Did it agree with you?
Oh yeah, the soundtrack is good. I mean, I love Bob Dylan, so
okay,
especially 60s, 70s Bob Dylan.
Yeah. This is like I was saying to Jason last night. It's like between like I like a lot of Bob Dylan too. I'll even go into like some of his stuff in the 80s too is really, really good stuff. But like from about 68, when he did the 2 kind of country albums, John Wesley Harding and Nashville Skyline, through this era, pretty much all the way to the end of the 70s, is probably some of my favorite Bob Dylan. And this just so happens that he's not just the soundtrack performer of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, but he's also a movie performer. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But yeah, so Sam Peckinpah, I mean, really probably his, well, I mean, I guess The Wild Bunch is his number one.
That's the excuse me. That's the Western he's most known for. Yes.
Right. As far as any movie, I mean, I'd still probably say it's that, wouldn't it?
It's up there. Either that or Straw Dogs are probably what he's most known for.
Okay.
But
and
yeah,
not
Wild Bunch probably edges it out. I haven't actually seen a lot of his movies. I've seen The Wild Bunch, Straw Dogs, The Getaway, now this, and Osterman Weekend. Osterman Weekend is a movie I like quite a bit. It was his last movie.
he did a couple
Um,
of pretty well-known
I didn't
Steve
know he
McQueen
did
movies.
Convoy. Actually, I've seen
Yeah,
Convoy.
Convoy. Yeah.
Wow.
I was
Chris
gonna say you've not
Christopherson
seen
and Ali
Convoy.
McGraw. Look at that. Ernest Borgnine. He loves him some Ernest Borgnine. Huh. Interesting. He had a weird career.
Yeah, he kind of did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because I think most people would say that maybe Convoy is much better known than it really is liked.
Yeah, it's funny though that like that's the movie that I think that always sneaky on people. Like they expect it to be kind of bad and cheesy, but it overperforms, you know?
Yeah.
Like there was someone at work once who was telling me, I was like, "Oh man, we were having a bad movie night and we saw Convoy." And I was like, "What is this? This looks terrible." And she was like, "It was actually pretty good."
We got a big old convoy.
That's
Let me
right.
ask about Chris Christopherson.
Okay.
Was he a musician or actor first?
Ooh, that's a
You
good
mean
question.
popularly?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because I assume he
think
was always
musician.
both, kind of, sort of. But
Yeah, it looks like yeah, because I just went over to him here. He once he got out of the army in '65, he moved to Nashville. While trying to become a singer. Interestingly, it's burdened with medical expenses resulting from his son's defective esophagus.
hmm.
Huh. But anyway, yeah. So I thought like this was in the first year of him acting.
Yeah, or so.
Um,
Yeah, this is definitely his first big role for sure.
oh yeah. Well, no, I
He
guess yeah, I
his
guess
fir-
I guess he was on some BB. He did some BBC work. That's
his
wild.
first movie was the last movie by Dennis Hopper, which he's lucky he survived that experience
Which was that?
because the last movie,
Oh, the last movie. Okay.
Dennis Hopper's last movie, that's whew, whew. That's one of those ones where like the story of the making of the movie is way more interesting than the movie.
Yeah.
He was
No,
he
I
was
mean
in that.
he had a pretty good run here because like he did Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid.
Hmm.
He was in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which
Hmm.
is Scorsese. So yeah, I mean, it's, A
Stars
Star
Born,
Is
of
Born.
course, was
Uh,
huge. That's a huge hit.
Famously, he had to take the role that was supposed to be Elvis.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. Because what was the deal with that with Elvis? He
well, Colonel Tom did not want
that's what it was.
Elvis to be
Of course,
second
of course, it
billing
was the
to
Colonel
right,
Tom.
but he did not want him to be second billing to Barbara Streisand.
Man, he's been in some really interesting bombs. Like the last movie in Heaven's Gate. Like,
Oh
is he
yeah,
the only
Heaven's
is
Gate.
he the
Yeah,
only person in the world who's in both those movies? Because that's notorious.
yeah, Heaven's Gate is yeah, that's a notorious one. All right, so anyway,
Okay.
so Chris Christopherson is our Billy the Kid in this, and James Coburn plays Pat Garrett, and goddamn, James Coburn is a presence.
Yeah, he's real good in this.
Um,
Um,
and this has to be, they have to prove that these two people are friends. And I think they do so very well with them very little being on screen together.
I think so too. They seem to have a chemistry. Chris Christopherson, Chuck mentioned it. He said he's kind of got a Kurt Russell thing going. I was like, yeah, I see it. It definitely does. And it's not often you see Christopherson without facial hair.
Right.
So he doesn't look like Chris Christopherson right off the bat to me. I was definitely getting those Kurt Russell vibes, but he feels a little too old to be Billy the Kid, but
Well,
but the chemistry works. I'm with you 100% on that. They feel like that very first scene together in the saloon, they feel like old friends.
But I would also say that they do a really good job of seeming to be friends separately too.
Sure.
Like there's a lot going on under the there's a lot of subtext going on in this movie. It's almost entire it's like subtext the movie. Because it's pretty clear that they're at least playing it that James Coburn doesn't really want to go and kill Billy.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious.
Yeah, he really doesn't want to.
But but he does things that doesn't seem like he I guess what I mean, yes, it's obvious, but he is also doing things in this movie where it does not seem as though he actually it's more than he actually doesn't want to kill Billy. It's he's wasting his time. And
he's kind of dragging his feet. He doesn't believe in the cause. He's a man who's stuck between two worlds.
Right. And it's kind of funny that this takes place the same year as Unforgiven, because I think this has a lot of connection with Unforgiven in two regards. One, this is a story about two people's legends and their past and what they were and who they are now. And also there's a lot of talk about what's happening to the world too.
Yeah.
That there isn't a room anymore for a Billy the Kid. That
the world is getting older and I aim to grow old with it. I mean, that's Pat Garrett's whole mantra, basically.
Right. Yep. And Pat Garrett was not Pat Garrett kind of had a little bit of an outlaw streak in him too.
Oh yeah, he was an outlaw before he became a sheriff. 100%.
I mean, in fact, it's kind of implied that that's why the Jason Robards character, the governor of the New Mexico territory, made him the sheriff. Is that, well, you might as well have an outlaw working for you to stop other outlaws.
Well, everyone was really an outlaw before they were a sheriff, it feels like, in like history. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so like he is, and this is one of those movies where it does a lot of work in between the lines, right? Because this movie also is very, very close in the same kind of stories and the same type of stuff that was discussed in the much more popular and well-known Young Guns movies. Like this almost is like what you would do. This is the movie you would have in Young Guns too, if you strip out all of the more fun elements and you're just kind of left with this kind of unfortunate element that two friends are going to have to kind of kill each other. But so really the movie actually begins right out of the gate. It begins with rewriting history, because the movie opens with Pat Garrett being killed in what they say is 1909, but it was actually 1908 that he was killed in. I would also say that I'm okay with that being extended a year, because I think this movie is a lot longer than what history actually is. I get the impression that Pat Garrett did not have to ride long to track down Billy the Kid in real life, or at least as the story goes. But in this, it almost feels like he's kind of on the road for like a month or two.
That kind of seems like just a mistake to me.
Well, it could be.
If I'm being honest, like, what's the point? What's the point of getting it wrong?
Well, sure, but I mean, I just like, I'm kind of reframing the movie, because this movie, I think, embellishes quite a bit more. Um,
Well, sure. I mean, I don't even know that we know factually how good of friends Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett were. I mean, it's implied that Pat Garrett was against the regulators in the Lincoln County War, which isn't necessarily true. I mean, there's a lot of shit that is just like flat out just made up, man.
right. Well, I think that that's important to note also because there is a very, very, very little about Pat or about Billy the Kid in general. Um, because I was kind of doing a little bit more like reading about like the real life Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. And it seems as though that what most people know about Billy the Kid actually it was
Written
from a
by Pat
book.
Garrett.
Well, ghost written for Pat
Yeah.
Garrett. Um, and that's been the kind of the Bible of this is who, even to the point where I think I even saw that there is question of whether or not the famous picture of Pat Garrett is or of Billy the Kid is actually even Billy the Kid. Like
That doesn't surprise me at all.
no, I mean, but it's the only depiction of Billy the Kid that's ever been preserved.
Right. I mean, he died, what, he was 22 years old, so he wasn't around for very long.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I don't think he was really an outlaw for very long. Like a lot of the 8 people he supposedly killed, I think happened very quickly in a short amount of time, and then he was tracked down and killed.
Well, the
So,
first three he killed, I believe, were in the Lincoln County War.
Right.
Um, when he was fighting for John Chisholm's.
yes.
Yeah.
And Pat Garrett was supposedly an outlaw at that time.
Right.
Supposedly, but
They were
Yeah.
all deputized by Chisholm
Yeah.
to be his kind of his army, kind of. I mean, like to fight against the whatever.
I think Pat Garrett's involvement in the Lincoln County War is debatable, though. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's all like weird. It's like weird, murky history, and it wasn't that long ago, you
right,
know?
right.
Because it was all
during a
like told
time
by
in
word
which
of mouth. It's like the shit. It's like the Bible, you know. It's like all these shitty like eyewitnesses in air quotes that can't get their story straight.
right, they can't get their story straight, and then it's told 100 years later or
Right. Yeah.
whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's yeah, it's
But that's what
but
makes it fascinating to me. It's
sure,
like we know these people existed. We don't know exactly what happened. We're just gonna, make up more of their legend as we go, right? I mean, that's kind of the point of these old Western folk heroes anyway anymore. Is like they're like we talked about in the Unforgiven episode. It's all legend, right?
right.
So
Well, in a
so
way,
everyone
it's
has a
almost
crack at telling their version of the story.
right. It's kind of a new Arthurian legend.
Yeah, yeah,
It's but it is kind of interesting because it's like I think we tend to think of Billy the Kid as a little bit more of a heroic character in general, and maybe that's just the American ideology of rebellion or you know
Well, I think well, maybe not anti-hero, but he stood for something people could agree with, at least as far as the way his story is told. Um, but his methods were wrong,
yeah,
right? So I
it's
don't
just
know about heroic. I think more like,
I think he may be being held up as kind of heroic as opposed to there are plenty of people who will swear up and down that Pat Garrett ambushed Billy the Kid and shot him
in the back,
unfairly in the
in the
back.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that's the
And
legend I know.
right. And but
Yeah.
I I'm not I mean, I don't know. I mean like and
I mean,
that's
there's just as many people that say he didn't kill him at all, and Billy the Kid
yeah,
did go to Mexico and lived out the rest of his life. And some people claim there's proof that he came back to the U.S.
right.
And that's kind of explored, in Young Guns too, I guess,
Sure.
a little bit.
Well,
But yeah,
are you sure you're not conflating the shot him in the back with the story we're going to talk about next week? Because that is the famous shot him in the back like a coward, Robert Ford shooting Jesse James.
the way that I'm pretty sure in Young Guns, Billy the Kid gets shot in the back, and I'm pretty sure I remember that from my childhood. So maybe
That's
they're
interesting.
conflating them.
Yeah, see, that's interesting because
And
again, those are two kind of legendary outlaws getting murdered by someone close to them, and yeah, the stories are conflated in some of our minds. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
well, and the well, some of it, like some of what I was reading, mostly talked about how Garrett was a little bit more cold-blooded in
Hmm.
shooting, like that he did not give Billy the Kid the chance to give himself up
Yeah.
and just shot him dead. Um, Although it is interesting because if anybody was wondering how, why Garrett shot the second time in this movie, which I'm sure we'll get to here in a minute, or in a little bit, but the as the story goes, as Pat Garrett said, is that he did shoot twice. He only hit him once. And I think that's why people think that maybe he got away, because possibly he could have survived the shot he took, as far as the medical record of whoever they said that examined the body.
Hmm. Hmm.
That he was shot in the chest, but it was not actually, um, it was just above the heart, not actually in the heart. So, and that Garrett can't even say that if he died instantly or if he died over time.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, this movie goes out of its way to make the exchange, if you will, honorable, right? I
Right.
mean, I mean, Pat Garrett gives Billy every opportunity to get out of town, get out of the country. He's like, I don't want to do this, but I will track you down. Warns him multiple times, does it twice, brings him in alive, the first time, right? Drags his feet along the way the second time, like doesn't want to have to do it again, right? So it's interesting because there's the tension there. I think a lot of the tension of the movie is in that, right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh yeah, totally. Because what's compounded is that how many people die for somebody else's pursuit of something?
mm-hmm.
It's like Pat Garrett goes and gets Slim Pickens. Well, if you think, oh my God, that's Slim Pickens, he's going to be around for a lot of this movie. He dies the very next scene.
Yeah.
But he does get to go out on a good song though.
Yes, he does.
But he basically sacrifices all of these other people. He goes and goes and kills people he knows,
Yeah.
and is set up as at least being well known associates, if not actual friends.
Right.
He's he's kind of, in a way, he's kind of even like killing, like it's almost like he's stripping away parts of himself, and ultimately he's
it's a bit of a purging. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he's also seeing
Like
people,
a purging of conscience.
right, but he's also seeing people, like with the Slim Pickens thing, that's showing him that he's not going to live to be old really either. He's
Right.
not going to get to do the thing he wants to do.
And he knows that it's going to be hard to coerce people to help him, right? Or to get, I shouldn't say coerce yet. Like he would like free help, like
Right.
like Gary Cooper in High Noon. He would love it if people just rallied to his side, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So the way he's got to get people to help him is through coercion. And in the case of Slim Pickens, it's really just like, hey man, you're a sheriff, do your fucking job. Let's
Right.
go. Right.
Right.
And he's like, okay. And his badass wife Katie Wardo, who is also from High Noon, man, she can work that shotgun.
She's a badass.
Oh yeah, like at first she's kind of mad. It's like, I guess we got to go back to work. But then she shows up and starts blowing motherfuckers
Oh
away.
yeah, oh yeah. She's like, well, I'm doing this. But before that, let's talk about the initial capture and subsequent escape, that Billy the Kid makes in the town of Lincoln, right?
Lincoln. Yep.
Um, because there's one big thing I want to ask about. Um, but yeah, let's start there. I think with going back a little bit before we go. So Pat Garrett's got his posse together. They surround Billy the Kid and his gang at a cabin. They have a big shootout. Who's in that cabin? We got
well, real quick, the movie begins. Okay, first we see that Pat Garrett gets killed by his own deputy earlier in life,
right.
and then he goes to the town and says, "Hey, Billy, tomorrow I'm getting my 10-star. I'm giving you, or in 5 days I'm getting a star. You need to clear out or turn yourself in." Because on day 6 I'm coming for you, and on day 6 he comes, but it seems as though that little cabin is like Billy the Kid and his two pals are working there or something, like they're farmhands or something.
It's not super clear, but
later he does
it does seem like he's left, because where was he at? He was in the town of, I want to say, Laredo.
Oh no, yeah, I know what you're. Yeah,
and that's where that's kind of where he always ends
he was
up.
in Fort Sumner. He's
Fort
in old
Sumner.
Fort Sumner.
That's kind of where he always ends up, and that's where he warns them. But yeah, he's somewhere else when Pat Garrett tracks him down. But he's
right. But I think he's still in
in
the county. Right.
Yeah, he's definitely, yes, in the county. I think
Right.
Pat Garrett. So is that really all he's asking him to do, is leave the county?
Yeah.
No, he wants him to go to Mexico.
I thought he wanted him to go to Mexico.
Well, right. Well, I mean, yes, but I mean, ostensibly, it's like, if you're going to be someplace where I have jurisdiction, I'm going to come for you.
I think it was a big county back then.
Probably. I mean, it's probably a big county today.
But that's just strange. It's like, just fucking go one county over, man. Let's make this easy, Billy.
But Billy kind of has a lot of hubris in the fact that, oh, my old riding partner, he ain't gonna kill me.
Right.
Not, I mean, it's like he's gonna act all tough, but he ain't gonna kill us.
The act of not leaving is like the brashest he is, really. I mean, that rings true to me. It's like, well, I'm not gonna be run out of town, right? But there's also this weird maturity to this version of Billy the Kid. Like, he's very world wise, obviously. He grew up fast. But there's like a value in the friendship too that he doesn't believe is over, I guess, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because he's even asked why he doesn't just kill Pat Garrett, and he's like, well, because he's my friend.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to believe he believes that's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point. And I do believe he believes that. Yep. Yeah. That when it comes right down to it, he was not going to kill him. Yeah. And he doesn't the first time. He captures him, right?
Right.
He gets him to give up his guns, and they brings him into the Lincoln County Jail. This is all really good stuff here at the jail.
Yeah, so this is so this comes from Young Guns 2 also, but it's also this is also accurate.
Yes, this is historically true. He kills 2 people escaping. Yes,
right. Because he waits for Pat Garrett to leave. Pat says he's got to go and collect some taxes around the county, and Billy knows that he has friends somewhere around here because they're going to leave him a gun in the outhouse. So he basically says, I got to go take a shit. Now, meanwhile, before all of that, he is getting kind of harassed by Bob Olinger, who is historically known for being an asshole. And basically he keeps kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of preaching to Billy about his wicked ways or whatever. And he really wants to do away with Billy. And Pat is kind of protecting Billy. And it's like, no, we're going to let this play out, the way it's lawfully supposed to play out or whatever. But he's getting on Billy's nerves. And he keeps
Yeah, I
talking
mean, who the
about
hell, who the hell wouldn't he be getting on his nerves? He's getting on the deputy sheriff's nerves.
well, he's getting
JW.
on. He's certainly getting on Garrett's nerves.
Yep.
Now, I believe Olinger was also part of the Lincoln County
He was. He was.
war crew.
He's
So,
also technically the last person Billy the Kid
yes.
killed. Yeah.
Now, I do have questions about that in general because what technically dictates what kills, who kills what, when, and how. It's like if he's defending himself, would that be counted? Because like in this is obviously going to be an outlaw move here.
Right.
But if he's being attacked or if he's out in the wilderness and he shoots somebody, that's not going to get counted.
Well, I just don't know that they know. I think
Right,
the last,
exactly. I mean, this is the last known death.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Olinger keeps saying that he's got 16 dimes in his 2 barrels.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
does that even work?
Buckshot. That's how that would work.
Well, I know, but how does he? How are they? He's loaded them into the cartridge, the dimes, instead of the buckshot? Is that what he's done?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah. And it would be bad.
Yeah.
it would because it's going to be hot metal.
It's the Sam Peckinpah movie. It didn't look good.
It slices through him pretty good. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So So anyway, so he tells the deputy, it's like, hey, I gotta go take a shit. And so they let him go to the outhouse, and of course he gets a gun, and then he pulls it on the deputy.
Yeah.
And he just he even gives the guy a chance. It's like, come towards me, and I think he wants to be unchained or unshackled.
Oh yeah, and he's probably just gonna, who knows, right? What he's gonna do after that. But yeah, he wants him probably to be unshackled. You don't get the sense though that he wants to kill him.
No, he's actually at least here in this story.
Right.
Billy is not an unreasonable guy. That may not have been accurate in real life.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, how the hell do they know the nuance of what happened in this scene, right?
Right, but yeah. Billy the Kid is often portrayed as a likable, at least charismatic person.
Sure.
So yeah,
but his legend is so far and wide.
Yeah. Well, it's why that kid's throwing rocks at James Coburn later too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he ends up. The guy resists and he tries to kind of run away, and Billy shoots him.
Yeah. And Billy shoots him in the back. Let's also point that out.
Yes, he does.
And it is very likely the guy is trying to get out to get Olinger, who has left the building.
Yeah.
Because then Olinger hears the gunfire and starts working his way back. Billy takes Olinger's shotgun. And what's he say, Chuck?
I don't remember.
Says, keep the change, Bob.
Oh, yeah, I wrote that down. Keep the change. My bad.
But, those dimes rip right through Bob Olinger.
Yeah, it's a cool shot. It looks like they're coming right at the camera.
Yeah. And there is somebody who's kind of looking on, too, that decides, hey, that's a guy I want to go hang out with later.
Yeah.
Alias.
My least favorite character in this movie.
He's kind of pointless.
Yep. It's we got to find a place for Bob in this movie.
We'll have him read some cans.
We'll have him read some cans of soup and beans.
And he won't even do that well.
Well, he does
Beef
a very
stew.
Yeah, he does a very Bob Dylan-esque.
Succotash.
Look at this.
Please.
That guy, Bob Dylan has the strangest Minnesota accent I've ever heard in my life.
Where's my bifocals?
So yeah, we'll come back around to Alias. I don't mind him, although I do agree in a movie that's already got literally dozens of characters that some just appear just to be killed in the very next scene or in the same scene.
Yeah. It doesn't even happen to him.
No.
Right. Yeah.
He's not even fodder for anything.
Right. he's just there to kind of be sad at the end.
Yeah, I know he doesn't even look sad, but we talk about that later.
So
Bob Dylan's not very good in this role, unfortunately.
But Billy, talks to a Native American fella or possibly Mexican fella, and says, "Hey, go get me a horse. First we gotta get me an axe so I can cut my chain, between my legs."
He's like, move back. I don't want to kill you too.
Yeah, so I don't want to kill you. He's reasonable, So yeah, he has the guys like go over to the stable, get me a horse. He brings him back a wild horse. So another guy comes up with another horse, and Billy just takes his horse and leaves the guy with the other one that he brought him.
Yeah, he falls off the wild horse, right? Like he can't even get on it.
Yeah.
Everyone's falling off horses.
He Clint Eastwood's it.
Yeah.
I do want to say that there is one really cool shot that maybe wasn't, I'm not entirely sure if it was intentional, but in the scene in which Billy is playing cards with Pat and with the deputy, you can see over his shoulder they're erecting the gallows for him.
Mm.
And it just was kind of a cool, because it's like, oh, he's always going to be followed by his own death. It's like, it's kind of a nicely framed shot. I don't know if it was by accident, if it was meant to mean that, or it was just, hey, the center of town is setting up the gallows for him, and it just so happens it's out that window. But yeah, I like that shot though. So Pat comes back to town. He realizes, oh shit, my guys are dead. I'm gonna go get a shave.
Yeah. He wants to keep the mustache though.
Well, yeah,
That's
a good mustache.
It's like keep the mustache.
Well, Garrett did have a mustache. He had a mustache.
He's very cool. He's very cool, calm and collected here, isn't he? He asked for the boy to go send a message to Mrs. Garrett
that he's going to be home.
I'll be home for dinner, and then go fetch everyone over at the county hall or wherever somewhere, and come talk to me.
Right.
Yep.
And in the process of all this, by the way, the barber is right there in the middle of the bar, the whorehouse, and the restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to imagine the beer stubbles getting all over everybody's food.
Or it just sticks to the ground.
Oh,
Yeah. It's like it's impossible to sweep up. Yeah.
But it's
just the Wild West, man. Your hair was everywhere.
It's just a furry carpet. There's like a carpet around the barber stand. Everybody thinks it's the carpet until they look real close.
Yeah. Well, and there's a bunch of tobacco spit in it too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Missing the
spittoon.
Yeah.
Ding.
But he does go home, right? And this is when he's kind of not ho-hum. He's kind of feeling sad for himself that he's the sheriff. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick, he does see Bob Dylan there. He asks him who he is, and he doesn't really respond. He doesn't, I mean, like, and it's just like, whatever, it's just this guy. And is this also where Jack Elam is? And he deputizes him. And it's like, no wonder he's having a hard time catching Billy the Kid, because he deputizes the guy whose eyes go in different directions.
Who's looking at only peripheral,
Poor guy.
Or only straight, like here in front of his nose.
Yeah, you can't see. He's not seeing too well in front of his nose, Jason.
That's why he only counts to 8, because he needs 2 extra seconds to find what he's shooting at.
Exactly.
But yeah, he does deputize him before he goes home, and this is like what I was saying earlier, right? Like, everyone who gets deputized was an outlaw, and it's probably, like, in a lot of cases in reality like an ultimatum. You either come help me, come get this more evil person, or I put you in jail, right? So you can be a deputy, or you can go on the road with me.
That's definitely the implication, right? is that you owe me. I know what you've done. Do this for me, and I'll look the other way. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Peck Garrett is calling in favors this entire movie, really. Like,
Yep.
he thinks everybody owes him something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But he does.
and these are all guys that, like, these are all guys who you're either going to join him or Billy.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's too kind of like the point to some degree of Alias is he's deciding what side he wants to be on. It's kind of like this heavy-handed kind of like decision, like this black and white decision that he represents of moving towards the law or the outlaw, right? And he chooses the outlaw.
Which
Because he's
honestly
like
turns out to be the
working as
better
a
life.
butcher or something in that in
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Yeah, he was, because he came out. He was
he's trying to
like,
scratch out a living,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the Alias chooses correctly.
Well,
'cause I think
John Chisholm's a real son of a bitch.
Well, yes, but he survives.
But John Chisholm is the reason that Billy the Kid dies in essence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he doesn't really have to choose. That was my point.
Oh, sure.
They prop him up as like this metaphor, I think, but he doesn't have to choose at all. He could just continue being a butcher.
Right. Right. He is good with a knife, though.
Yes, he is.
Well, that's the charisma of Billy the Kid again, right? Like, just being around him makes you want to be around him more.
Right.
And everybody, even the people in the town, like when Billy escapes the jail, they've obviously chosen Billy over Pat Garrett. Because they let him just walk out of town.
Yeah, they don't
Nobody
go
tries to
grab
stop
the
him.
shotguns and pitchforks, do they?
Right.
No.
No.
Yeah. And it's only one of them.
Yeah, and
But it's sort of like I kind of read that too a little bit like the legend preceding itself, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like Clint Eastwood at the end of Unforgiven. These aren't fighting people necessarily. Why would they get involved?
Right. And I agree with that. I mean, we had that in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly too. When he was going to free the guys who were noosed, nobody lifted a hand to fight him. So like half of society is trying to progress, and the other half is doing whatever Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett did.
It's a little bit High Noon too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's a definite theme I didn't really expect from this month, but it's kind of in every movie we've done so far.
Yeah, sure has. And you kind of feel it too, right? I mean, you feel like, High Noon isn't a great example, I don't necessarily think, but this, I think, moment is of a town that just wants to like progress, just like you said, Chuck. They don't want to be involved. They don't necessarily know all the politics of either side. They've probably both been wronged in some way by John Chisholm or Billy the Kid and his gang, right? They probably just feel stuck in the middle of this never-ending violence anyway. So the least they can be involved, the better, right? If we got to hang the guy, we got to hang him. If he's going to escape, he's going to escape, right?
Right. But that means they see no harm in him either in some ways. Like,
he's benign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's benign to them because the alternative probably isn't any better.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, they're probably being dealt with more severely in other ways, financially and psychologically, by Chisholm than they ever would by Billy.
Right. For sure. I think did we already talk about Pat going home?
Well, we were getting there, and we backed up to talk about Alias and Jack Elam.
Yeah, he goes home and he kind of laments the idea that he's the sheriff, right? He's not real happy that he had to take this job.
Mrs. Garrett ain't gonna help that either.
No,
she hates the fact that he's the sheriff.
Yeah.
Right. So he's not happy to be home either. Like, he doesn't want to be the sheriff. He doesn't want to do anything. Like, any responsibility he has right now, he'd rather just shirk off. Not jerk off, shirk off. But he's taken this post probably because he got forced into it too, in a way, like many of the others did.
I think so. A little bit forced and a little bit also, like you said earlier, it's a form of self-preservation.
Yeah.
He thinks this is the right side to be on for long-term health.
Yep.
Yeah.
But his wife does say, you're dead inside, basically, like, And I think this is the last we see her in the movie, right?
It
Yeah.
is.
Oh yeah,
She's like,
because
Yeah.
because they like it is even Poe even brings up later. By the way, that's the guy who killed him at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was. I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
In history, Poe is the one who killed him. But he he even makes note that it's like you've been gone 7 weeks from Lincoln. Garrett doesn't even want to go home. Like there's
Right.
nothing for him there. He's gonna meander and let Billy kind of continue to stay out ahead of him while he just kind of meanders the desert, really.
Well, yeah, he's still hoping that Billy will leave.
Yeah.
Well, part of it is like, just go, Billy, so I don't have to do this.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But at a point, he gets angry and decides he has to do it, kind of.
Well,
Yeah.
because all of Billy's other pals are going to try to kill him. And they're going to, I mean, like it's getting to the point where either he has to kill Billy or Billy's pals are going to get him, or the other people, the other powerful people, Chisholm, Wallace, the other guy who ends up trying to basically bribe him into killing Billy.
Yeah. Were those were other cattle ranchers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just a powerful people lunch.
Yeah, but I think it's also not so not it's that's the right way of putting this. It's not so subtle here either that there is a sense of there's a power struggle happening still with Chisholm and these guys at the table. And again, so Garrett isn't just stuck between the law and the outlaws. He's stuck between factions within the lawful functioning society, right?
Which is why I think Poe ends up
In
following
politics.
after him, because Poe is then deputized by Wallace and those other string pullers, really, is what we could call them, to basically, well, if Garrett's not going to do it, you can.
Right.
And you can get the money and the fame and all of that.
Which is kind of weird, because if they were paying attention or knew any better, Billy's focus would have been to kill Chisholm. That's what he would have done.
Yeah.
And it would have helped all of them who sent whatever his name is after him. Yeah, Poe.
Yeah, that is an interesting point.
Yeah.
Because Poe and Garrett do eventually go and talk to Chisholm.
Yes.
And Chisholm's got his own bounty that he talks to Garrett about. In real life, Chisholm ended up refusing to pay that bounty.
Wow.
But a bunch of other cattle ranchers and business owners in towns ended up raising like 10 times more money and gave it to Garrett. According to Garrett, Garrett became kind of rich out of this. And not because of his book, because his book failed.
I wanted to mention, since we were talking a lot about John Chisholm, I kind of, when we were chatting about this offline, I was kind of making the point that John Chisholm is kind of the real villain of this movie. He's sort of like the specter that hangs over everything.
Yeah, he's the thumb on the system, right?
Yeah.
Like on the scales.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, he runs Lincoln County, right? I mean, he's the most
You
powerful
work for
man.
him or you're useless to him. You might as well be dead.
Right. So I think it's interesting. Once again, like we at least I made a conscious decision not to include any John Wayne Western in this month. And in fact, I think the ones we've chosen to some degree have been like very anti John Wayne Western. And this one I would definitely put in that category, considering the fact that just a few years before this movie was made, John Wayne made a movie glorifying John Chisholm as like the great American hero. He played the title role. He was like the grand old fatherly John Chisholm, fighting for truth and justice. Yeah. Which was just not the case. It just flat out wasn't. I mean, this was a ruthless businessman. I mean, ruthless. There was 100% blood on his hands multiple times over.
There is absolutely blood on his hands in this, at least in Billy's eyes.
Yeah.
Like he comes back when he decides to go home go home. He comes back to say Chisholm killed. Was it Paco? Was that who it was?
Yeah, it was
Silva.
Paco. It was Paco.
Oh yeah, Paco. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, and his men was raping his wife.
Yeah, and he had
And-
previously warned him, like, Chisholm's no good. You're wrong to trust him. He's like,
Don't
I have
trust
to trust
it.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody should go to Mexico because he
Yeah.
tries to get Alias to come with. It's like, hey man, it's a good life in Mexico.
I'm wondering, there's something weird here. I think maybe it's the edit of the special edition, because the back-to-back lines in the movie almost are, at one time, Billy the Kid saying to Alias, Mexico won't be bad for a few months. And then Alias says, depends on who's there. And the very next scene, Alias says, Mexico won't be bad for a few months. And then Billy the Kid goes, depends on who's there. I don't know if it's supposed to be a joke.
Yeah,
or
I
weird.
think I took it as that because something was, because they're all celebrating, they're all having good times, and and like I feel like that was, they were just saying that to each other as a, hey, if you're going to be there, it's not going to be too bad for a few months, or if these people are going to be there, it's not going to be bad for a few months. They were both kind of affirming that to the other.
Nobody else was
I'll
going
be honest,
with
I didn't
Billy,
even
though.
catch it.
Yeah.
No, well,
I didn't even catch it.
No, nobody else is going, but Billy is trying to get everybody to leave Sumner, the people he cared about, because it's like that's the reach of Chisholm, and I think Paco was leaving.
He was.
Well, I think Paco lives in Mexico, and he was
That's
bringing
right,
his.
because Paco was the one who was like, "Hey, come down to Mexico, Billy. It'll be good there." Yeah,
Yeah, and he's
okay,
like,
you're
don't
right.
pass through his lands because you can't trust them, and then he
Right.
killed him. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Yep.
you're
You
right.
guys
you're
talk about the Gerardo scene? We haven't talked Gerardo.
No, while you were gone, I talked about how this is an anti-John Wayne Western.
Ah, yes. Okay.
because John Wayne played a heroic version of Chisholm.
Like 2
Got it.
years before this movie was made. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Because that's a good scene, and it happens actually before this, where Pat Garrett goes to find, I forget what the dude's name is, something Black.
Oh no, it's Black something.
Oh yeah, to get information about where Billy might be holed up.
Yeah, and the sheriff there doesn't want to do
Black
the
Harris.
job.
Right. So
Yeah,
this
Black
is where
Harris.
Slim Pickens and Katie Wardo get drafted, basically,
Right.
Yeah.
to go and take out Blackie's gang.
Yeah, and this is
Because,
probably my
this
favorite
is-
scene in the movie, really.
Because
Oh, yeah.
this is the gang in which Pat goes to see, and that's where he meets Alias, right? It's that gang, right?
I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing these people before this scene, honestly.
Yeah, me
But-
neither. I think they might be separate people.
Okay. Or
But
no,
either
you know
way-
what? No, I'm sorry. You're right. Because Harry Dean Stanton is part of, those are the people who end up riding with Billy.
yes.
They take out the people who aren't so sure about riding with Billy, and then they all leave together. That's yeah, okay. Because Harry Dean Stanton was in that scene too.
Yes.
Harry
So-
Dean Stanton hanging out in this movie, by the way.
Dude,
Yeah.
hanging out. He's everywhere. He's usually in Fort Sumner.
Usually, yeah.
I like to imagine Chris Christopherson, Billy Dean Stanton,
Billy,
And-
wait, Harry Dean Stanton.
Harry Dean Stanton, Jesus, and Bob Dylan just all like hanging out playing guitar.
You mean John Dillon?
Yeah, that guy. And I guess Willie Nelson was hanging around set too.
Oh my God, there's so
Yeah.
much pot happening.
And it's so much pot, so much folk singing.
Well, no, wait. There's one more person in this movie. I was going to wait to drop this. Real life girlfriend of Chris Christopherson plays his girlfriend in this movie, Rita Coolidge. So there's a lot of music happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The
Huh.
uncredited co-writer of Layla, who got totally screwed out of that song. She wrote the piano exit, I believe,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Rita Coolidge, they were married at one
Yep.
point, right? Yeah.
from 72 to 80 or something like that. 70,
Dang,
yeah.
I missed that altogether. That's wild. Didn't even realize that was her. Cool.
So yeah, she plays Maria. But anyway, yeah. So they
So
basically,
so tell us what you like about the scene, Chuck. The when they go and track down Blackie's gang or whomever it is.
Yeah, Blackie's game. Black Harris, I think.
Black Harris. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's hidden out in a shack there, and Pat Garrett knows where he is, and he wants information on Billy. And really, I think he knows Billy's going to be at Fort Sumner, so he's probably just killing time again
by killing guys,
by killing folks.
Yeah, he's killing time by killing time.
He's making it look good.
You're right.
But he gets the
he's
local
getting
sheriff.
rid of the people that he doesn't like as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sheriff is like, I don't want to do anything unless there's some kind of gold involved.
Mm-hmm.
And he throws him a gold piece, and he and his wife, Katie Guardo, I cannot pronounce her name, maybe that's right, Guardo, go with him to the shack. And the first thing that happens is the sheriff that didn't want to go gets shot in the arm, and then he gets shot in the chest.
Yep.
But his wife is cleaning house.
Yeah, she walks in and just blows the guy away with the shotgun, and you got Black Harris on the roof kind of talking to Garrett to try to get a feel for where he's at so he can shoot him. But the cool part of this scene is the sheriff walks down to the water while Knocking on Heaven's Door is playing. And then Katie Guardo realizes that he's down there, and she throws her gun and goes and sits and basically just watches him die as that song is playing. It's really kind of
and then Pat has to look back, and that's when I realized that Pat Garrett realizes this is his future too. That he is not going to get to live the life that he thought he was going to have by becoming a lawman to grow old with the country.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but I can totally see that. But he kills Black Harris, that's for sure.
Oh, he kills the hell out of that guy.
Yeah.
But he turns around and realizes what's going on, and you can see it kind of in his face that, this is my future too, and where what he pictures is a little too early for what he intends to on how he's going to live his life.
Well, he traded a kill or be killed world for a kill or be killed world.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
To me, it's almost just like he this is all just the same life I've lived, and I feel like if I'm gonna live this life, he's feeling remorse for being on the other side of it. I think because he is dead inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't think he really wanted Slim Pickens to die. Nobody wants Slim Pickens to die.
Nobody wants Slim Pickens to die. I mean, the only time I want to see Slim Pickens die is when he's riding a nuke down.
A nuke down to the ground. Yep. Riding that H-bomb. But yeah, I think there's just a little bit of legitimate remorse there too.
Sure.
I would agree with that.
I think just the reality of everything that's going on is hitting him right at that moment. I
think it was around this time too, with like the extended version instrumental happening, where I was like, I'm ordering this album. It will be at my doorstep next week.
I take it you got it on vinyl.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. No, it's a good scene. It's a really good scene. And, I mean, when you hear the lyrics of Knocking on Heaven's Door, I mean, that is for that character.
Mm-hmm.
Because he even refers to his wife as mama. He talks about getting his badge. It's his song, and it's a good scene. It's a really good scene.
Yeah, I need to listen to that song again through the lens of that character for sure.
Yep.
So then, next I think is when
at one point Pat Garrett is getting shot at by a guy on a boat.
This is a weird scene.
It's a weird scene.
I was trying to figure out what the hell is going on here, but yeah.
Well, a guy is just shooting fish or something.
He's shooting
bottles.
His kids seem to be throwing bottles into the water, and he's shooting them. Or he's trying to shoot them, I should say.
He's failing.
And then Garrett sees it and is kind of amused by it and starts shooting at the bottles too, because he's thinking, oh, well, I'll take that bottle out and show this guy up.
And then the guy turns on him.
Yeah, and shoots at him.
Yeah.
And then they kind of have a standoff, and then they both put their guns down. It's like really weird. Like what is that? What is the purpose of that scene?
I don't know.
There's got to be something there, right? Is it Pat Garrett kind of wrestling with his outlaw side? It's like
Yeah, maybe.
this is a moment where I can go bad, you know,
Yeah,
and
it could be. I mean, he is certainly playing with kind of, or he's struggling maybe a little bit with the, like, he got a little playful like he would be when he was an outlaw.
yeah,
Here's
And
what I think.
because at
Oh,
the
go ahead.
because at the beginning too, what's Billy and his gang doing? Shooting heads off chickens.
yeah.
And Pat gets involved, doesn't he?
I think so. I
So
think you're right.
it's
I
all
think you're
part of
right. I
that.
think you're right because he does. He takes a shot and gets one, and it is a version of that for sure. Yeah,
He's just trying to have fun,
yeah.
but
He's
he
trying to get
can't.
some spark in his life.
He can't have fun anymore.
Yeah,
Is basically the way I took it. Like, I try to have a little fun. Someone shoots
and
back.
someone
at
shoots
me.
back at me. Yeah,
Yeah.
He did
Yeah.
not react to that shot though, so he's kind of steeled a little. He's like he
well, I
is,
mean, who would? The guy can't hit a bottle that's 10 feet away from him. He's not
he
going to
gets
hit
pretty
Pat Garrett.
close to Pat. I mean, Pat Garrett is at least a little taller than that bottle. He's got a little bit more.
He's
to
a
hit.
lot farther away, though.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, because like the little gunshot goes off right next to the little ping goes right off next to him, and it's like,
Yep.
damn, Pat, you didn't even react to that.
Well, it has to be in frame. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he was just trying to have a little fun and realize that that's not part of his
that
life
could be.
anymore. Like, people won't allow it.
Yeah.
Which could still go back to his outlaw. I mean, that's they have fun shooting their guns.
Yep.
It's why we
you
are
also-
the way we are in this country, guys. It's that we're too much like the outlaws. We want to just shoot our guns.
Yep. So
And-
Billy did decide to go to Mexico, right?
Yeah, he did.
And
He did decide to. It was when Paco died
yes.
that he decides to come back. It's like, screw this. He's like,
Fuck that Chisholm guy.
fuck that Chisholm guy. Exactly. Yeah.
I just like the line when he's leaving where he says, remember me to whoever rides by. Like, don't let people forget the legend of Billy the Kid. It's pretty cool.
Which is go ahead, but I'm going to look this up real quick. That's really close to a Bob Dylan lyric
Huh.
from Girl from North County. Remember me to the one who lived there.
Yeah, remember me to the ones who once lived there. I think.
Remember me to the one who once lived there. Yeah.
So a little homage there, one way or
Possibly.
the other.
Look, could
Yeah.
be.
I
Could
mean,
be.
it's certainly that was in the Nashville skyline. It could have been during just Dylan playing with old language, old English, old American English.
Right.
Yeah.
But clearly, like, everyone's got Bob Dylan on the mind in the creation of this movie, so it would.
Well, clearly because he's there.
It would. I wouldn't be shocked even if by osmosis that's the reason why the line's there. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I 100% believe that Rita Coolidge, Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, and Bob Dylan are all pals and have been since the early 70s.
So much pot.
Oh,
So
sure.
much pot.
Yeah.
Okay, so Billy goes back to Fort Sumner,
Yes.
right? But before he goes to Fort Sumner, what's he do? Old Cross Eyes has got a date with Destiny.
Yeah.
This
so-
actually when he's leaving, I think he goes to say goodbye.
Is
to
it before he goes to
these
Mexico? Does he do this?
folks. Yeah.
I thought it was
yeah,
after.
I think it is. Yeah, because he goes straight back to Fort Sumner. He doesn't waste any time going back. In fact, I think
Oh
it's a,
no,
I think
I
it's
don't
a
think
time.
so. I don't think so because he goes to the place with all the beans first.
No, that's Pat.
No.
Or-
Billy goes there. Billy goes there after he comes back from Mexico. That's where he goes. Pretty sure.
Anyway, either way, the 8 count was prior to Chisholm killing Paco because that's the order I have it in my notes.
Wait, what was?
Billy
The 8
never
count
Happens what? Before or after?
before Chisholm killed Paco.
Oh
It
shit.
happens
Okay.
before.
I wonder.
Yeah, and Billy never showed up at that bar. That it was Alias and the other two guys with
That's right. That's right.
Billy's crew, and because Garrett knows these guys are Billy's guys.
Yeah, he recognizes Alias and he knows the other dude for
Right.
sure.
And he forces Alias to basically club a guy to death. And then
No, he's alive at the end of the movie. He just knocks
but
him out.
he knocks him out, but he is out, like out,
Yeah,
even when another gunshot goes off,
yeah.
and kills that one poor bastard with the knife. Well,
You're right. You're right. I have it all mixed up in my head. It's when it's not the trading post and the saloon are not the same place.
right.
But along the way to Mexico, before he catches up with Paco, is when he runs into Appaloosa
Yes, and he is
or
there.
Alamosa.
Alamosa.
Appaloosa.
Close enough.
Yeah, Appaloosa, wasn't that one of Prince's girlfriends in the 80s?
I think so.
I mean, it sounds like one. I don't know. But no,
this is another example of a deputized outlaw and a real outlaw who now have to be at odds, even though they don't want
and
to
one
be.
guy is his heart's not in it. Billy's is, because it's like this is how it's got to be. He, of course, Billy's looking out for himself. The other guy is struggling, and he just kind of like it almost seems like he's at that outpost so that he doesn't have to be involved, because he's hanging out with that incredibly redheaded family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my
it's like
God,
the fucking Weasleys from Harry Potter.
It's the one Irish family in New Mexico, and they have no reaction to what ends up happening. But they
had a shooting like this a week before.
Yeah,
and the kid was buried in the yard, so they see this all the time.
Yeah. So, which I think there's also that undertone in this movie too, where it's like, it sucks to live in this time in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody could die at any moment. You have there is no such thing as comfort or safety. And certainly if you own a business, it could get knocked over at any moment or get muscled out by a landowner.
Yeah.
Uh,
I love that they both cheat.
Yes.
Duel.
Because they're both outlaws.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
Billy just cheats worse
Right.
or better.
Billy
your
cheats.
perspective.
Billy
First.
cheats smarter
Yes.
because he knows this guy isn't going to count to 10.
Right.
Because he knows if he counts to 10,
you?
I'm going to win.
Yeah.
So there's no way he's going to do it the right way. So he just turns around and waits for him to turn. Yeah, it's pretty smart.
He still cheats. I mean,
well, 100% cheats, but he cheats smarter.
He cheats first. He gets the drop by cheating first. But yeah, I like that too because he turns on 8. Alamosa does, and then Billy shoots him. It's like that was you stopped on it or turned on 8.
So that wasn't 10, Hoss.
It wasn't 10, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I never was good at counting.
And he knows at this point he's done for, and Billy just shoots him down.
Yep.
And that's when Billy goes across and finds Chisholm and his wife at that moment. Yeah.
Not Chisholm. Chisholm's men are attacking.
Finds Chisholm's men killing Paco.
Right.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Right.
And and so Pat has during all of that, Pat has gone to that saloon.
Yes.
Out in the middle of nowhere.
With Lemuel.
Right, with the Chill Wills, which is which is the funniest name on the planet, because I always think of Chilly Willy when I think of Chill Wills. Anyway, he is a couple funny things happen in this scene, because one, you have Chill, he knows what's going on. Like, he's like, oh, you're looking for Billy, whatever. Just, I'll tell you where your booze is too.
Yeah.
And I think Poe has already caught up with, because I think this is when I think Pat sends Poe away.
He does.
He sends him on a 6-day.
Yes.
And so he's just going
to
hang out with the aliens.
Yep. Yeah. He's going to go to Roswell. He's going to go hang out with the guys who picked up the Fire in the Sky guy. And they're just going to hang out. And so then, Pat has no intention of leaving this place. I don't think he just wants Poe out of his hair for a little bit, out of his mustache. And that's when Alias and the other two guys that ride with Billy come in. And he's like, oh, I know these guys. And he gets a little sadistic here. He has Alias knock the guy out. He has Alias pull the hat over Lemuel's eyes. And then he's going to play cards with the other guy while he has Alias go and read off the cans.
Yeah.
I mean, this is outlaw shit. I mean, like he is
right.
I mean,
he's having too much fun doing this.
Right. He is torturing these guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody he's friendly with is caught in this, and he even mistreats him too. And so Bob Dylan just starts reading off beans of different kinds, including lima beans, green beans, quality sardines,
bites.
Or no, really quality salmon is what it was the fish.
It's really strange.
It is strange.
He's doing that.
And then, but I don't know if he's trying to keep him away so that he can just deal with the one guy in front of him and then have that be the message to send with Alias and the other guy back to Billy, or what. But he knows that the guy he's sitting there playing cards with is going to pull a knife on him or is going to try something. So he just blasts that guy, and Bob Dylan's still reading cans.
Yep.
Steve.
So
yeah, he tells Alias, like, you tell Billy we had a drink here, basically, next time you see him.
Yeah, he leaves him as the messenger.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Chill Wills, right?
He's like, I shit my pants. I had
I'll never forgive you for this. I done shit my pants.
I can't remember. No, he says, I had a bowel movement in my pants.
In my trousers.
In my trousers. He didn't get a chance to trump.
I'll never forgive you for this.
Yep. And so, at that point, like,
it wasn't trousers, it was breeches. It's even better. I have a note. Bowel movement in my breeches.
Nice.
Oh, nice alliteration with the B's too. Anyway, so now, basically, it's shortly after this that then he and Poe go and see Chisholm, and Chisholm's like, "You're still up for this, right? You're still going to do this." We basically making it sound like that there's no room for people like Billy in this world anymore. And I think it's kind of meant to also keep Pat in line too, because I think Pat's kind of thinking he also meant that about me, that I can't be the person I was either. So he, when does he, he now goes, he knows that there's a girl that Billy goes and sees.
Yep.
At the whorehouse, and she's the one who tells him that he's at Fort Sumner. Now,
Ruthie Lee.
Now, when he's on his way up to go see Ruthie Lee, the guy says, "Do you want me to send anybody else?" He's like, "I don't care who you send." So the guy sends all the girls up to get a little Pat Garrett action.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because these girls are just filing into this room one after the other. It's like, God damn, dude. It's like,
well, before that, it should come as no surprise that Elisha Cook Jr. runs a saloon.
Of course. Elisha Cook Jr. was in every single everything in the late 60s and early 70s.
I think he drank all the booze in Hollywood for a while because he
was a drunk. He was a drunk.
Plays the drunk.
Yeah, he was a drunken Messiah of Evil and has to tell the story about what goes on in that town.
Yep.
Yeah.
That scene, that sex scene is something fucking else.
It's like something out of Dolomite.
Like that it is. That is the kind of shit that just does not get into movies anymore. At least not Hollywood, big budget Hollywood movies.
But it's used to paint a picture, like the contrast between Pat Garrett and Billy.
Right. Because Billy has one girl.
He has one girl. It's very intimate.
Yeah.
It's very intimate and sensual. And Pat Garrett's basically just getting his dick washed by these girls.
Yeah, well, but not,
He is getting it wet at the
after
very
he
least.
slaps one of them around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then he starts flicking the one girl's nipple.
Yeah.
God, it's
He's
ridiculous.
giggling
He's like
about it.
he's kind of like regressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this scene. Yeah. And again, I think there's something to your point earlier, Chuck, about the he's trying to find life, right?
Yeah.
The only way he can even be happy, like he has to have 5 whores at once. That's like the only thing that gets him to any kind of glee.
He has to snort the whole bag of cocaine at this point. He can't just have a line.
Yeah, but you're right. And before this, he had the whole scene with the gunslingers in the saloon. So it's like he is very unhinged in some ways at this point. Yeah.
Well, and he's and then Poe comes in, and there's a look that Poe has for a split second that's kind of hilarious when he walks into the room and he sees that there's 5 girls plus James Coburn in bed.
In bed. Yeah.
Talk about being in like Flint. He is all the way in like Flint. But so he so then he ends up because this is in Roswell at this point, because he actually sends Poe to Roswell and gets there first and talks to Ruthie Lee there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then basically now we're all headed to Fort Sumner, and Billy rides back in, and his pals, I think it's Harry Dean Stanton, who actually says, "Yeah, I was really hoping it wasn't you coming back."
Yeah.
And that's when he said, they got Paco. Chisholm killed Paco. But I'm gonna go see my girlfriend. I'm gonna go see Rita Coolidge. She's gonna sing me that James Bond song she did, All Time High. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be real nice. And so
Jeff fantasizes he's Billy the Kid in this movie.
I like that.
Sure.
I'd let her sing that song to me. I wouldn't even ask for it. I would just sit in the corner. I'd hang out with her old man who's just talking at anything.
And you jerk Offerson.
No, I just sit there and listen to the Bond song. That's all I do. Eat some stew with Bob Dylan.
Beef stew.
Anyway, so yeah, this is where it's like most of this final 30 minutes is like Billy the Kid actually being like tender and sweet and nice to his, and it's Poe and Garrett, and there's another guy. I'm not sure.
Well, he's made Elisha Cook Jr. come with him.
That's it. Yeah, and they're kind of descending.
Yeah.
On Sumner.
Because there's a scene right before he gets all of the horse sent up to his room where he lists all the favors that Cody, Elijah Cook Jr. owes him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because he says, I hope they spell my name right in the papers.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's gonna die.
Yep.
He knows. Air quotes. Yeah.
He thinks he will, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
in his mind, he's dead.
Yeah.
Right. No, I'm going after Billy the Kid. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, I know what he did.
And his gang. I mean,
right.
They won't be alone either. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so like Garrett kind of, and there's somebody there also. Like, is it the guy who's making the horseshoes? Somebody in town. It's like, oh, you finally made it. Like basically it was like, yeah, he kind of knows what's going to happen now. It's either Garrett or Billy are going to be
that guy's dead. Like, get it, go do it.
Yeah,
you're here, go get it done.
Right,
he's in there.
Yep. And so they kind of descend on Maria's house. Maria and Billy are kind of done doing whatever it is that they were doing, like giggling under the covers or whatever. I don't know what sex is, guys.
Making a tent.
Yeah.
Pillow fort.
Pillow fort.
Oh, that's what I'd want to do. Anyway.
They called it Pilly the Fort.
So they come like he goes out to get like a drink or something.
Go get food. He says he's hungry. She's like, I'll make you something. He's like, no, I'm gonna go out to see what's in the cooler.
Yeah, yep. He goes out to the little bag of ice machine.
Yeah,
and the two guys, Poe and the other guy, are like, hey, That's him. That's it. Meanwhile, Pat is kind of sneaking in and looking around. He notices he's not in Maria's bedroom. She knows that she hears something outside her room, but doesn't really get up or do anything about it. So he just goes and sits there with her old man, who's very confused. He's a very confused old man, and he just waits for Billy to come back. And Billy notices that there are two guys whispering that he doesn't recognize, and he's like, "Hey, who are you guys?" And he goes inside, and there's Pat waiting for him. And
Yep.
Billy is Billy even armed? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, he grabs a gun. He has his gun in his belt.
That's right.
And he pulls it on the other two guys and backs into the house.
Right.
And then I think he's holding the gun in his hand when he walks in on Garrett and the old man.
Right. And so there is a few seconds there. It's like, it's not an immediate shot.
Right.
I mean, there's some thinking about it. And he ends up shooting him in the chest, and then he just shoots off to the side. I don't know.
He shoots the mirror because he thought somebody
himself,
else, and he thought somebody else was in the room. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not sure that he thought somebody else was in the room. I thought he was shooting at himself.
I think it plays that way. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a metaphor.
Right. Yeah.
He thought someone else was there, but for the audience, he
Yeah.
shot himself. Yeah.
Shooting himself. Yep. A little piece of him died today too.
Yep.
Whatever was in that damn mirror.
Yep.
So he just hangs out on the porch, and
he doesn't just hang out on the porch. He prevents Poe from cutting off Billy's trigger finger. Right. And it's kind of like the
trophy of them.
Yeah, but he's like, no, you show some respect, right? He's still even in the fact that he had to kill Billy, but he still respects him and isn't exactly pleased with what he had to do.
Right.
Doesn't want that body desecrated.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
And so
I do need to clarify one thing from earlier.
Yeah.
When I was talking about Young Guns, Pat Garrett walks in on Billy the Kid, and Billy the Kid turns around, which would have forced him to shoot him in the back, is the story. And then the next day they show them burying a body. So people assume it's Billy the Kid, but in reality, Billy the Kid walked free and went to live his life in Mexico. That's the Billy the Kid in Young Guns 2 version. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that.
Young Guns 2.
Young Harder.
Yep. But this ending is very close to the story that Pat Garrett told.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
saying in the movie they're using his version.
Right. Which, like Jeff said from the top, is really the only account there is.
Right.
Right. Which is kind of wild.
Unless that old man,
or at least it's the
somewhere.
account that has been propagated. Through time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that Bob Dylan actually was alive during that time too, and the reason why he's here is because he could say, "Yeah, that's what happened."
Mm-hmm. More likely, Keith Richards was.
Well, very true. Although Bob Dylan's totally wearing Tom Petty's hat in that scene when he first joins up with.
Maybe Tom Petty showed up to jam too.
Oh, he would have been young. Well, no, not that young. He would have been, yeah.
It'd have been
awesome. He would have been about mid-20s. Possibly. That'd be cool. George Harrison and Jeff Lynne show up too.
Yep. The Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah.
His posse.
Yeah. So I said this to Jason last night because Pat does eventually leave in the morning, and the little kid just to kind of show that Billy the Kid meant something to this town.
Yeah.
Kind of chases after Pat and throws rocks at him.
Yep.
In
that kid's mind, Billy was a hero, legend, a good radical dude.
Yep. And I think that's probably somewhat historically accurate, and why Billy's story is seen heroic, or whatever word you want to use, throughout time, is that the people that talked about Billy the Kid probably said nice things about him.
Yeah.
And the people that talked about Pat Garrett probably did not say nice things about him.
I get the feeling that Pat Garrett is a little bit like Elliot Ness
Mm.
in the sense that he was probably opportunistic and
Well, he said he was lucky. I mean, he
yeah,
even described killing Billy the Kid as lucky.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he was maybe a little bit of a, of course he's kind of a turncoat, right? Like, I mean, obviously Elliot Ness wasn't a turncoat, but Elliot Ness is really only good for exactly one thing, and that was the Untouchables. His life after that sucked,
Yeah.
and Pat Garrett's life after Billy the Kid sucked. So, like it didn't really go the way he probably thought it did or would have gone. And he's probably he's probably the hero of his own story, and very few others' stories. But anyway, no, I was saying this to Jason last night that there is an incredible sadness to this movie. The whole thing is just slathered in kind of this sad, almost well, it's melancholy is what really is what I would describe this tone. This is Pat is constantly thinking about what he's constantly struggling between what he should be doing, what he doesn't want to do, and what his past is versus what he thinks his future is. Billy almost seems to kind of live recklessly.
Oh, for sure.
And he's kind of very much living in the moment, and he expects Pat to let him go. Or at least I think that's. I don't think Billy the Kid ever thought Pat Garrett was going to kill him.
Definitely not.
I agree. Which, obviously that was his downfall, right? But
Sure.
it also kind of makes for an interesting, martyr, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this movie is almost. I don't know how to say this because I don't want to discredit the film, but it's almost a difficult watch because you spend more time with the most unlikable person in the movie than you do with the more likable person. The most unlikable person wins, right, in the end, even though, I mean, you're supposed to feel sad for him, I think, when he sits on the bench before he kills Billy and after he kills Billy. I just don't. I
don't know that you're supposed to feel sad, but I think you're supposed to understand.
Okay.
I think
He
you
looked
feel
kinda
however the hell
pathetic,
you
though,
want. I don't think
right?
it's trying. I don't think it's trying to manipulate you one way or the other. I didn't feel that way.
I know I didn't feel
But I
manipulated.
definitely felt a sense of what he was feeling and empathy for his conflict, right?
Yeah. And there is and it is a, it's one of those stories that you can just kind of on the surface just say, oh, that's kind of sad that these two ended up in this situation. Probably one being, if you want to talk about manipulation, Garrett is probably being manipulated by his ambition and being manipulated by the real bad guy, which is probably Chisholm.
Yeah, I mean, he really gave Billy every chance to leave.
Sure did.
It's all the other stuff he did that makes him kind of deplorable, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh no, he's not a good guy.
Hookers
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we talked about this in one of our previous episodes. There probably weren't really all that many great people.
No, I agree.
No, yeah.
I
mean,
agree.
Right?
he's very much. This Pat Garrett is very much Little Bill from last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It very much is. You were saying something earlier about Billy living day to day, and then Pat is kind of like they're both peas in the same pod, right? But the difference is Pat Garrett wants a future, right? Billy's just happy if he sees another sunrise.
Yeah, that's right. Pat is almost obsessed with what tomorrow is.
Yeah.
Whereas he almost kind of, that's what kills him inside, is that he can't live he doesn't have that same zeal that he used to when guns blazing, he's riding off, he's,
Well, yeah,
escaping a situation.
Billy's future is now, and
Yeah.
Pat Garrett's future is unattainably far away.
Right.
Like,
And
so much
considering,
has to happen for him to enjoy the future that he sees for himself, whereas Billy is already in that time,
right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, Pat Garrett's only was only about 9 years older than Billy the Kid, if you're to believe what records we have.
Yeah.
But 9 years in the West is a long time. It's a real long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got this more mature, in some ways mature attitude about like self-preservation. Yeah.
And is it like 12 years later that he gets shot? I can't remember
No, it
what
was
year.
1908. So
In the movie, it was 1909, though, right? And the
right.
movie takes place in 88 or
81. So he lives a good, you know,
almost.
28 years,
28
Yeah.
years.
27 years.
And
after
I
that.
was wrong. Poe is not the real killer of Pat Garrett. I think it's an amalgamation of the people who
Yeah,
ultimately killed.
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no, it's just that Poe, you see him before you meet him in the timeline.
Right.
That's yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because the guy who killed him was last name was Brazel. So yeah. Anyway,
Have we done it?
We
Have we
did
done
it.
it? Have we
I
done
think
it?
so. I think this is a pretty good movie. I think it's nice and moody. So it's probably the moodiest of the movies that we watched this month. I mean, Unforgiven's got a lot of mood too, but I think this one kind of has a lot more purposely quiet contemplation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Unforgiven throws in some slapstick even. So even if it's a more moody film, it's kind of goofy at times.
Well,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is because now we're dealing. I mean, the big difference is Unforgiven is a bunch of old guys kind of holding on to a past that doesn't exist anymore, or trying to re-enter a past that doesn't exist anymore, depending on which person you want to, you're talking about there. But yeah, it's I mean, it's a different type of mood. It's a different type of set mood and situation. So no, I'm glad I picked this movie. I'll tell you what.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, me too. Real quick, I should mention for anyone keeping score, there are 3 cuts of this movie. We watched the special edition. There was the theatrical is about 106 minutes. The there was like a preview version, which I think was something like 125 minutes or something like that. And then the special edition, which I think split the difference, is about 115, 116 minutes. Some controversy. There's a forward horse fall in this movie that is pretty hard to watch. I don't know what happened to that horse, but I doubt it was good. And then there's obviously scenes of real cockfighting.
Yeah.
So there's both of those things.
I'm pretty sure those weren't fake. I wasn't too sure those were fake chickens being shot at the start either.
Yeah, don't think they were. Interesting. Like some versions of this, like TV versions of this, will cut the part out. But yeah. Anyway, so just in case you do want to watch this, I would give fair warning on those 2 things. But yeah, I'm glad you picked this too.
Yeah.
I like this movie a lot. Very, very surprising. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was, and it was a good one.
Once again, I'm going to correct myself yet again here about the killer of Pat Garrett.
We need one of those guys like PTI that just fact checks us. Yeah.
But to pick her up, this is the third.
This is the third one. Yep. So there are a lot of people who are either believed to or thought to or claimed to have killed Pat Garrett. Jesse Wayne Brazel was the one who rode into town saying I shot Pat Garrett, got arrested, but was acquitted when put on trial. There are others, 4 other suspects are included, but then the Garrett family believes that it was Carl Adamson. Prentice, Archie Prentice Road is another person.
More items that just lead us to know that the West is an unhistorically
right.
Accurate era of time.
Yep, somebody killed, but there was clearly enough people who wanted Pat Garrett dead for whatever reason. And this is probably not related to Billy the Kid at all, because it's 20 some years. Anybody who cared about about Billy the Kid's probably dead.
Yeah, except for his son, who grew up wanting revenge and then started a crime family. A crime family. Yeah.
But yeah. So no, I don't.
Father the Kid. Sorry. Go ahead.
I think that Garrett probably ended up making a lot of enemies because he had financial problems. He had, I don't know. I said, I'm not too sure he's not that well liked.
Whatever with Pat Garrett. We're done.
We're done with him.
Let's wrap this thing up, guys.
Let's move on to our next guy. Our next guy being Jesse James.
Jesse James.
Oh my God, this is a long title. The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
See, what I love about that, though, is it's exactly the title that you would get on one of those little Western legend pamphlets that tell the story.
Yeah.
It's exactly the type of title.
So that's going to be next Wednesday. That's going to close out Western Month. And so you can go to filmseizure.com, listen to that episode next Wednesday. You know what you can also do? You can also follow us at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can subscribe to us in various places like SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, and YouTube as well. So do those things. That's great if you like listening to what we have to say about movies. Also, you can listen to my show, Monster Mondays, every Monday. This upcoming Monday, Son of Kong, the not as well-known sequel to 1933's King Kong that came out like in the same year, in the same calendar year.
Oh, wow.
As King Kong. Surprising that it works out and surprising that it's a well-appreciated sequel on top of that. So, yeah, do those things, all of those things found at Film Seizure. Tomorrow here in the United States is Thanksgiving, so want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Eat that turkey good. Then on Friday, while you're out doing your Black Friday whatevers, you can read my new B-Movie Enema article. We're giving thanks to yet another Leo Fong movie. This one's from the 70s called Enforcer from Death Row. And then this Saturday, continue the whole celebration of Thanksgiving with a big giant turkey as I do another episode of B-Movie Enema, the series for The Giant Claw.
I can lasso those turkeys like Billy the Kid and Alias did.
I lasso a turkey.
I got me a turkey.
Yep, got me. I could have lassoed 5 or 6 of them.
You didn't get in my way.
You're getting in my way.
By the way, I like I said, I don't mind Bob Dylan in this movie. I know you guys had your issues, but that's okay.
Just took me out of it.
That's
Unnecessary shoehorn,
it's
but
like,
that's okay.
Holy shit, that's Bob Dylan. Anyway. All right. So,
all right. Who are we?
Well, we are a notorious outlaw gang. I want to introduce myself as Jeff Arbuckle.
I shot Pat Garrett.
And I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.